after the Tumaini ecumenical service on Sunday. And my guest in the studio briefly is Professor Lumumba, Patrick Lumumba. He's one of the politicians and well-known individuals in the continent and in the world, and specifically in a country like South Sudan. Is a well-known person who has well-versed information and knowledge about the current affairs in South Sudan. And he's our guest in the studio briefly this time. It's good to have you with us after the prayers this morning.
Perhaps I'm a politician only in the sense that Socrates says that all human beings
Yes.
are animals.
Yes, indeed.
Not a practicing Kenyan politician for the
Right. Now, let's have your view briefly, Professor, on the ongoing Tumaini initiative, and what do you make of it, as Kenya has been contributing or playing a bigger role in bringing about lasting peace for the people of Sudan by then during the CPA and now South Sudan?
The Tumaini peace process, in my view, is a welcome process. But I hold the view that ultimately it is the people of South Sudan that can deliver unto themselves lasting peace. Outsiders may mediate, but remember that their mediation is only for a time. It is therefore incumbent upon all South Sudanese, particularly those who have the honor and privilege of being in positions of leadership, whether in government or in opposition, to realize that the burden they carry is a burden for generations now and generations yet to be born, and people have to sacrifice their short-term interest for the general good. My prayer and my hope is that Tumaini will provide that forum, and that this will be the last peace initiative that the South Sudanese will have, and that thereafter they'll be able to resolve their issues inside of South Sudan.
And this Tumaini initiative, there has been a concern about, there's already a revitalized peace agreement which is ongoing, and people back home are also talking about the constitutional making process. And talking about constitution, you're a very person who is well versed and known about when we talk about law. And the Tumaini initiative also touched some of the constitutional reform in the country, and this is something already ongoing in South Sudan. How can we best really have a permanent constitution? Because since independence of South Sudan, we continue to have a transitional constitution. How best can South Sudan have a permanent constitution in place? You are someone who contributed to the constitution of Kenya.
Once again, of the leaders of South Sudan to give unto themselves a constitution which is much more stable. One can never have a permanent constitution in that regard. It is the duty of the people of South Sudan to give themselves a constitution, particularly those who are in positions of leadership. Because once a constitution is stable, then it means that you can begin to practice constitutionalism. That is to say that you do the things that the constitution requires of leaders and requires of citizens. And I hope that during this process, one of the things that is going to be given a pride of place is the need to move towards a constitution which is stable, a constitution that is people-centered, a constitution whose making demands of people's participation, a constitution that obligates political leaders to conduct themselves properly. But remember once again, a constitution in and of itself is not a solution. The solution is that you must have political leaders who are prepared to sacrifice for the country and who love the country and who know that no matter how high they are, the law is mightier than all of them.
How best can we learn from the experience of Kenya, a nascent country like South Sudan, which is 13 years old, in the process of having rule of law in place, Professor?
South Sudan must not only learn from Kenya. Kenya has had our own trials and tribulations, and we continue to have our trials and tribulations. But there is a sense in which at critical moments we have weathered some of these storms. We should also learn from other countries. Learn from Rwanda, learn from Uganda, learn from South Africa, learn from Botswana, learn from Namibia, And when you have taken the lessons, only take such lessons as will ensure that South Sudan is a country where peace is given its pride of place for the purpose of ensuring that economic development and the dividends of independence are then enjoyed by the people, and their rights are given the publicity first and then the significance that they deserve.
What brought about Tumaini, Professor PLO, is the economic crisis in the country, insecurity, displacements, floods, the issue of governance, among many others in South Sudan. And this is why Tumaini is coming on board now to try to have a remedy to all these problems. What message do you have to the leaders of South Sudan? I mean, civil servants in our country have gone for nearly 1 year without receiving their monthly salary. So what message do you have to the current leaders in the country?
South Sudan is a rich country. South Sudan has oil. South Sudan has minerals. South Sudan can be a basket, food basket for the region. South Sudan has all the ingredients. What we need is to ensure that the revenues that come from oil are enjoyed by the people. We can see that happening in countries such as Qatar, in Abu Dhabi. Why can't we do it? We have minerals. Let us enter into discussions which will ensure that the minerals of South Sudan are used for the benefit of the people of South Sudan. South Sudan has 12 national parks. It can be a tourist destination. We should create peace so that is there. The floods are things that can be resolved by human beings. The Dutch have done that. We can borrow technology. But let me tell you one thing, what history has taught me and taught others. It is the duty of leadership to be sacrificial. Leaders must be sacrificial. Leaders must be visionary. Leaders must deny themselves. Once leaders deny themselves, then the people 9 out of 10 times will follow leaders who are servant leaders. I believe that if South Sudan were to make a decision within 10 years, her GDP would rise to 200 billion United States dollars and her per capita would rise to 10,000 United States dollars. It can be done and it must be done. It is the duty of the leaders. These were freedom fighters. They made a promise to the people of South Sudan. And they have a duty to fulfill those promises because they have been given the power and the honor and the privilege to do it. The people are waiting.
What message have you brought today to the leaders of South Sudan in the Tumaini initiative during the ecumenical service or during the prayers today on Sunday?
My message was simple, that blessed are the peacemakers because they shall be called the children of God. Let them be peacemakers. I've also told them that they must be midwives for peace, and that the function of a midwife is to ensure that the child born out of the process is a healthy and a bouncing child. I've also told them that in order to have lasting peace, memories must be selective, because as Desmond Tutu said, there is no future without forgiveness. So we must be a people who are prepared to compromise, because it is through compromise that you move forward. So if you have positions, you must be able to alter your position if the alteration of those positions is in the best interest of South Sudan. When all is said and done, all the leaders, opposition or government, must always remember that they are only here for a season, but they are in Kenya under Tumaini for a reason, and that reason is to ensure that there is peace in South Sudan.
Thank you very much, Professor Patrick Lumumba, for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
All right.
Yeah.